Hey, good evening, everybody. Happy Sunday again. I'm here with my brother Justin to give some more bold and not so bold predictions for the 2022-2023 NFL season. Hey, good evening, bro. How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, pretty good. Trying to beat the heat.
Indeed, it's been hot lately.
That's for sure. All right, let's jump into it again. We got a few bold predictions and then a few not so bold predictions just to get some chatter, get some reaction. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll give my third bold prediction for the 2022-2023 NFL season. Number three is going to be that the Arizona Cardinals are going to start the season 1-7. I could be wrong here, but I have a feeling the Cardinals are going to start the season the opposite of the way they did last year. We all remember they were the number one team in the league for probably the first 10 weeks of the season. And then when they played that game against Green Bay without Green Bay's wide receiver core and still lost the game, the wheels just seemed to fall off from that point forward. But again, I think they're going to start the season the opposite of the way they did last year. Kyler Murray's camp obviously is saying everything's fine with his contract situation, but he still hasn't signed an extension yet. So obviously everything isn't fine. Otherwise, he'd have put a pen to paper. They're not going to have DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 weeks, of course, as well. I know they brought in Hollywood Brown for Baltimore, but we all saw how their offense looked last year when Hopkins was out. They struggled mightily. So I anticipate that while he's out to start the season this year, they're probably going to struggle as well while Hollywood Brown kind of gets acclimated to the offense. And then really, if you look at the first half of their schedule, you're going to see that the only games that they probably will be favored in, and if we're going into the season right now looking at it, I would say maybe the Carolina game and the Seattle game. They're definitely not going to be favored against the Chiefs. I doubt they'll be favored against the Raiders or the Rams or the Eagles or the Saints or the Vikings. I think all of those teams are better than them based off the way the Cardinals finished the season last year. So if they are going to win more than one game, they're going to have to win both of those games on the road. And the reason that I don't think they're going to be able to win more than one game is because both of those games are on the road. I think they will lose one of them. If I had to choose one of them, I'd probably say the Seattle game because it's a divisional foe and Seattle's crowd is really rowdy. So that could probably have an influence on the game. I definitely think they start 0-3 for sure. They're going to lose. And then I think, obviously, like I mentioned, they're going to lose to the Eagles, Saints, and Vikings as well. So I think it's going to be a tough sledding for them to start the season. Again, I know that this is, unlikely because of those two games there. But again, that's why they're bold predictions. And of the three I've given so far, this is the one that I feel the most confident about. So I could be wrong, but we'll find out.
Yeah, no, when I first see this, I go Cardinals 1-7, and I'm like, and then I see the schedule. I didn't really have a chance to look at their schedule prior to this, and I'll tell you, those first three games right away are going to be tough. So I could see them easily in an 0-3 hole to start the year. And when you're losing, it just kind of becomes habit, and it's just something that unfortunately causes momentum, just like it could be positive, could be negative. So they get to that game against Carolina where they're 0-3. They could easily lose that game. So I see where they could definitely wind up 1-7 here. The schedule is not favorable for them at all, especially, no favors for the first few weeks of the season. The Raiders team, I believe, is going to be much improved. I mean, we all know how good Kansas City is. The Rams, they won the Super Bowl. So that first three games right there, and the schedule makers did not do them any favors. As far as Kyler Murray goes, I believe he's going to sign. I believe he'll be there, to be the week one starter and everything like that. I think he's going to sign an extension here soon from what I'm reading on Twitter and all that jazz. But regardless of whether he's starting, they just have such a tough schedule there. I didn't realize it was that tough until I look at this. And then, they're going to be minus D-Hop for the first half of the season. One of my other bold predictions will go into another reason why I think that they're not going to, be well off this year. They're going to have struggle throughout the year. I mean, just looking at their schedule, they've got some tough
Yeah.
games. Never mind that 1-7 start. I mean, you go week 10, LA again. You got the 49ers, then you got the Chargers. Then you come out of the bye week, you've got the Patriots, who should be a better team. You know, they weren't bad last year with Mac Jones.
Yeah.
The Broncos with Russell Wilson, who's all too familiar with the Cardinals. Then the Bucks, Falcons, but then the 49ers again. So, I mean, they could win, gosh, man, less than 7 games. Maybe I'll flip this and say I'll have a bold prediction right here, if you don't mind me detail off of you, is I'm going to say they don't win more than 7 games this year.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. After I was looking at the schedule, I honestly see, if I'm picking, games, I'm going to say again, let's give them. Let's say that I'm wrong and they win 2. All right, they win the Carolina game, they win the Seattle game. I don't think they're going to win any of those other games that I mentioned. I think that they might beat Seattle again. So let's say that's 3. They very good chance they'll split with the 49ers because they've had the 49ers number. So let's say that's 4. I say they beat Atlanta, even though that's an early game on the road, early start for them. So that's, you know how West Coast teams do with that. So I would say, yeah, you're probably right. I would put a 6 or 7 game ceiling on their season this year, based off the way they finished last year and based off the fact that Hopkins will be out for the first 6 weeks. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough year for the Cardinals, unfortunately, for those Cardinals fans. Happily for me as a 49ers fan.
You, for sure. All right. So let's jump into a couple of your predictions. These are all going to say bold predictions, obviously. Some of them aren't as bold. They're just predictions for some banter. So let's go ahead and jump into the first one here. Take it away.
Oh, this one's definitely bold. And I know the kind of reaction I got from you when I first messaged you and said, hey, here's going to be one of my predictions. You're like, yeah, that's bold. But listen, I would say, of course, this is a bold prediction, but what I would say is if anyone could do it, it could be Allen Robinson, who's a great wide receiver, I believe. He's still actually younger than Cooper Kupp. Going to be playing with the best quarterback he's ever had in his career, Matt Stafford. So, when I say that Allen Robinson will score more fantasy football points, it might not be by a large margin. In fact, I think both of these guys are wide receiver 1 potential in the Rams offense that's going to throw the ball a lot. Robert Woods, with all due respect, he's no Allen Robinson. Not even on paper, he hasn't put up the statistical numbers that Allen Robinson has over his career. And Allen Robinson has 3 top 10 PPR finishes in his career as well. With lackluster quarterback play, he's got 2 top 10 PPR finishes with Mitchell Trubisky as quarterback, and then he's got 1 with Blake Bortles as quarterback. So I think, with that being said, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Allen Robinson steps up in a Rams offense that is really good with a good quarterback and a good offensive-minded coach and actually scores more fantasy points than Cooper Kupp. Now, the chemistry that Kupp and Stafford have, that's undeniably there. It's going to be there, and maybe early in the season that could be the advantage that Kupp has over Allen Robinson. But Kupp did also score a lot of big plays last year, so a reduction in the big plays. Probably a reduction, a little bit of regression in the touchdown area for Kupp. He put up some historical numbers last season. So Allen Robinson's going to take some of that pressure off. I believe that he's going to have a really big year, and I would not put it past him to score more fantasy points, not by a lot, not by a lot, than Cooper Kupp with Stafford in a really good Rams offense.
Yeah. Well, I already kind of gave you what my feeling about this. I was taken back. All I could say is this. I definitely think it's a bold prediction. I don't see it happening unless Cooper Kupp gets injured. And it's not because I think Allen Robinson's a bad player. I don't. I think you're absolutely right. I think he's a really good player. And he's going to be playing with the best quarterback that he's ever played with. So I think that he can have a big year. But obviously, I picked Cooper Kupp to finish in my top 5 in fantasy football. So I don't think that Robinson's going to replace him. So I don't see this one coming to fruition. I will say this: Allen Robinson is going to be a big time contributor for the Rams this year. I will agree with that. I would say that he could definitely be a top 10, top 8 fantasy football wide receiver. I just think that Stafford and Kupp were on another level last year in year 1, and I don't anticipate them regressing in year 2. I think they actually ratcheted it up a little bit, possibly, which could make my prediction wrong, and he may finish number 1 again. I had him at number 2, but we'll see. I think Allen Robinson's going to have a great season. I kind of hope that they don't have such a great season. Obviously, us being 49ers fans, we don't want them to kind of, blow up the charts. But I mean, if you're being realistic from a football fan perspective and from a fantasy football manager perspective, I guess I could see both of these guys having a great year. I just don't see Allen Robinson outscoring Cooper Kupp.
That's why we make the prediction. But I'm telling you that even though it's bold, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. I like Allen Robinson. Really, I'm as crazy as people think I might be. I'm very confident in this prediction right here, just based on the fact that Robinson's done it before. Again, he's a year younger than Cooper Kupp, which in the grand scheme of things, I guess it doesn't mean a whole lot, but they always do talk about players' age in the NFL, things like that. And Kupp, he saw 33% target share last season. I think that's going to go down with Robinson, who's an excellent route runner and just a veteran. He's a great leader. He's a veteran, and he hasn't played a ton of football, I guess you would say. I mean, I know he was starting for the Bears and stuff like that, but he didn't get a lot of snap count or snap share, I should say, with the Bears last year and the year previous because of just a young developmental system they got going on right now. So I think he's going to be fresh. He's going to be really fresh. Sean McVay was talking about how good of a professional he's been in the offseason and just showing out in the limited practices that they've done. So I'm pretty thrilled actually to see again. Yeah, like you said, 49ers fans. We don't want the Rams to do good. We don't want any team in the NFC West to do good. But just from purely fan perspective of football, the game itself, Allen Robinson, I think, has what it takes to score just a few more points than Cooper Kupp.
Well, we'll see.
I could be wrong.
I think. Hey, we both could be wrong. Maybe they'll tie. All right. Let's go ahead and go to your next prediction here. I think this one was a bold prediction as well. Tell us about this one.
Yeah. So James Conner, he's not going to be an RB1 this season. I don't think he's going to be close to an RB1 this season. He wasn't very efficient actually. Last year he was entirely touchdown dependent throughout the regular season. He only had 752 rushing yards, not a lot by any stretch of the imagination for an RB1. He only averaged 3.7 yards per carry, only 37 receptions, 10 games with 2 targets or less. I mean, we're talking PPR here. So, as a running back, you got to catch passes if you're going to do good in PPR. I have him as a low-end RB2 this season. He had 3 games with 20-plus carries last year. There was 5-game stretch down the end of last year where he had 75% of the carries or more snap share. Other than that, it was hovering right around like 47%. So they didn't even use him a lot. It was entirely touchdown dependent. I think he's going to regress. The Cardinals offense isn't going to be better, especially without Hopkins in the early part of the year. So I think that Connor, low-end RB2 this year, doesn't score a lot of touchdowns in a Cardinals offense that I think is going to take a step back. Their offensive line's not really good. He just wasn't very efficient. He didn't pass the eye test aside from, a couple of big big play touchdowns and them using him at the goal line here and there, he didn't show a whole lot. He didn't do a lot. 18 touchdowns total. There was 15 rushing and 3 receiving. And other than that, I mean, if he just loses a couple of those, he falls right out of the top 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. Really don't have much to add to what you said. I was looking at the numbers. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, one of my bold predictions, I think the Cardinals are going to start the season 1-7, and I think this plays right into it. I think again, I think their offense is going to struggle. I think James Conner is definitely going to be a part of that. And you're right, he was very touchdown dependent last year when it comes to fantasy football. And those things we all know, they kind of go in cycles. It's kind of like what we always talk about when we did sales. Sometimes you owe the numbers and sometimes the numbers owe you.
That's
and
right.
I think this year James Conner is going to owe the numbers, and he may get the same amount of yards and things, but I think that some of those touchdowns are going to go to other players if they even get the same amount of touchdowns they got last year. Again, I think they're going to struggle quite a bit. So I can definitely get on board with this one for sure. I know a lot of folks are going to think this is a bold prediction because James Conner is the Cardinals RB1. But I think when it comes to fantasy, you're absolutely right. He's probably a middle to low end RB2 at best this year.
Out of the running backs, I think there was 2 of them that I can think of 2 off the top of my head. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't do my research on this one, but 2 off the top of my head that scored more touchdowns than James Conner. Not only did they score much touchdowns, they were just far more efficient. I know for a fact that both Eckler and JT, they averaged more than 4 yards per carry. I know they both had more receiving yards and more catches than James Conner. So they're efficient. They have the touchdowns and the efficiency. So, if they lose a couple touchdowns, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 here, coming out of going into the season, I should say, then they're not going to fall out of the top 10. Connor, if he loses a few of those touchdowns that he scored because of his inefficiency, he's easily going to fall right out of the top 10. And I just don't see him scoring 18 touchdowns again this year. I'd be shocked if he scores 15.
Yeah, I can see it, definitely. All right. Well, let's jump into another one here. I guess it depends on your point of view of the position and the way the game's being played on whether this is a bold prediction or not. But I definitely, it's one that I could definitely get on board with. I'll be honest. So here we go.
Yeah. All right. I really like this one actually because it's like you said, it just kind of depends on your definition of the tight end position and how these tight ends are used. Kyle Pitts is used like a wide receiver. He should be because he's athletic like a wide receiver. So I do believe that Kyle Pitts is going to break the single season records, 2 of them in fact, 1 for receiving yards for a tight end and 1 for receiving touchdowns. So Ertz currently has the record for most receptions by a tight end at 116. I think Pitts is going to I wouldn't say shatter that, but he's going to break that record based on sheer volume. They drafted, was it Olave? Why am I thinking?
Oh, gosh, I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, actually, I think the Saints drafted Olave. So our listeners can be like, why is this guy talking about stuff he doesn't know about? But nonetheless, I guess that proves my point is like, who do the Falcons throwing the ball to? You know what I mean? They lost Russell Gage, Ridley suspended for a year. Pitts is the man. I mean, he's literally the guy. He's the only receiver I can think of that they have right now. So he's going to get a lot of targets. He's going to get a lot of catches. And then as far as yards, Kelsey, he currently has the record for most yards in the season at 1,416. Pitts had over 1,000 last season. I think with the added volume, just I guess the extra work that he's going to be getting, he's going to be able to break that record as well. Again, I wouldn't say he's going to shatter it or anything like that, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that he just gets utilized so much and he sees so many targets that he's going to put up more than 1,416 receiving yards from the tight end position. I know he did lose Matt Ryan, but again, that's another reason why I think that He's just going to be relied on. You know, tight end can often be seen as a safety net for a quarterback who doesn't have a lot of chemistry with the receivers. So that might even mean an uptick in the running back department for receptions. But I believe Kyle Pitts is going to have a monster year this year. He's going to break some records. I didn't actually have him as my tight end one for fantasy, which means someone else is going to have a really, really good year. But again, that's why we call these bold predictions, and those are some big numbers by Ertz and Kelsey. So if he breaks those records, he may wind up being the fantasy tight end one. He's high in tight end one potential for sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, when I first saw this, when you sent it over to me, first thing I thought was, oh, well, they lost. Matt Ryan went to the Colts, so that's not going to happen. It really made me do a double take for a second, and then I started looking at the Falcons roster, and you're absolutely right. I was like, I think this is going to happen. I think it's definitely more than a possibility. It's a very strong possibility. So, like they don't have anybody to throw the ball to. You're right. Ridley's out. They lost Russell Gage. Typically, a tight end is usually a safety blanket, safety net for a young quarterback, or a new quarterback. Even, you know, maybe if they decide to get a veteran, maybe they trade for Garoppolo or something like that. He loves tight ends, so I doubt they would. But just throwing out other scenarios, usually, you know, the tight end's a guy that gets a lot of catches, a lot of looks. So I could definitely get on board with this. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and jump on board all the way and say this is going to happen.
All right, I like it. I like the boldness. Hey, Pitts is he's a great player already. I mean, he's only going to go into his second season, but he's going to have a really, really good career. If the Falcons can get a franchise quarterback to pair with him, they're gonna have a good connection for a long time because Pitts is just that good.
Absolutely, he's a phenomenal tight end, that's for sure. I agree. All right, let's go ahead and go to your next one here. This one isn't so much of a bold prediction. I would say it's just a prediction, even though it says bold here. And we'll just kind of chat about it and give our thoughts.
Yeah. This wasn't necessarily a bold prediction. You know, I just was looking for a little banter, to be honest. But Lamar Jackson and all indications on Twitter, just coming out of camps and stuff like that, videos we're seeing. Obviously, everyone's so, you know, kind of yoked up on a video where he's all buff in the off season. He's put on some weight. I think the staff over there in Baltimore, starting with John Harbaugh in the front office, you know, they know they have a franchise quarterback, but they also know that he's only going to be of value if he stays on field. So I think that this offseason they put a real emphasis on his health. I think he's gonna bounce back to be a top 10 fantasy QB this year. He fell out of the top 10 last year. He was number 15 PPR. But with that said, everyone knows he has the ability to be in the top 10. I think he plays all 17 games this year. So here's where it becomes bold, is I think he plays all 17 games, which he didn't play a full season last year. He struggles with injuries, you know, just little nagging injuries. He doesn't miss a lot of time, but I do think he plays all 17 games this year. He's gonna have close to a career year, probably pass around 3,100 yards, which is close to his career high. 25 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions is where I have him at. And then, of course, we know he's going to rush for a lot of yards, so I have him at. My prediction is about 750 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns, which should easily put him right there in the top 10, low-end QB1, maybe even get in that mid-tier even. So I think he's going to bounce back, not necessarily a bold prediction. He's gonna have a good year. Bateman should have a good year, I think. And just that offense, the way they scheme things for healthy Lamar Jackson, and even when Hundley came in, was it Hundley? Yeah, came in last year to fill in for him. You could tell that they really schemed for their quarterbacks and their athletic skill set. So Jackson gonna bounce back. Any two QB leagues definitely should have be targeting Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, we're going to give our top 5 fantasy QBs later this week on Wednesday, so I won't give away too much. But I will say this: I think that Lamar Jackson should be a top 10 fantasy quarterback, obviously with his skill set and the fact that he's been the MVP and he's just an electrifying athlete. And I think that outside of fantasy, if you can kind of correlate one with the other, I think if he's not a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year, that means that the Baltimore Ravens are struggling and they're having a terrible year. They like you said, they scheme for him that much, they depend on him that much that if he doesn't play lights out and finish in the top 10, I think that the Ravens are in for a long season. That means that they're a losing team. And I don't think there's any other way to put it. So I say for his sake, obviously, hopefully you're right. I think that if he does struggle, he's setting himself up to get franchise tagged rather than signing a long-term extension. I think a lot, again, if he's not a top 10 fantasy quarterback, that means he's struggling, the team's struggling, and it gives the Ravens ownership pause on signing him to a long-term deal, especially with the type of quarterback that he is and the way that he plays. And not that he gets injured a lot. He does get injured. He takes bumps and bruises, pretty often. But, guys like that have a shelf life. And at some point, that style of play catches up with you in the NFL. And it takes that one hit or that one wrong move, that one juke that blows out your knee or something. Hopefully that doesn't happen, knock on wood, because I love watching Lamar Jackson. And I would never wish for anybody to get hurt. But, we've seen guys that play like that. All it takes is one play changes their entire career. So I think that if he does struggle and he's not a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year, then he's looking at getting franchise tagged, and he's going to have to prove it again next year that he deserves to get that long-term extension.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a great year. Historically the Ravens are a good organization. They're good at bouncing back. So I think Lamar Jackson's going to bounce back in a big way. You won't see him in my top 5 later in this week, but he has the skills to be top 5. Obviously, he was number 1 at one point, not too long ago. I think 2 seasons ago, actually, 3 seasons ago. Sorry, but he's going to get back in that top 10 this year easily.
Yeah. I was looking at Fantasy Pros. I think they put out their consensus top 20. And I think Lamar was, I think he was in like number 11 or something like that. I would have to double check. I don't know if I'll put him in my top 5, but I think that I think that he's going to have a bounce back year. I think he's going to have a big year. Again, you got to give credit to that coaching staff, John Harbaugh. They do a great job of scheming for Lamar and putting him in positions where he can showcase his strengths. And I think that last year was just a rough year for them from the beginning because of the injuries they had. They were down to their
running back position.
Yeah, they were down to like their 4th string running back before the season even started. So I think that put a lot of pressure on him. And he was doing, there were a few games last year where Lamar Jackson was like Superman, basically, and really delivered for them. He just couldn't do it for the entire season. And I think that if they can stay healthy, that he can definitely have a phenomenal year fantasy-wise.
Yep, I think he's in line for it.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's all the bold predictions that we have. Be sure to check out our channel and look for new content weekly. If you don't mind, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Share with your friends. As always, be kind, even to Cowboys fans, and have a great evening.